Over the last 4 years, I've managed to fish and film 21 live match videos at the Northern Bream venue, Southfield Reservoir. Even if you've never fished that venue, I'm sure you've all heard of its reputation for being a little bit of a moody mistress. There are times when you can have weights of over 100 pounds, don't get me wrong, but there are times, certainly during winter, when it can be hard enough just to get a single bite. This video is what I consider to be my top 5 hardest matches at Southfield Reservoir. Well, don't get me wrong, Southfield Reservoir can be absolutely fantastic. It's one of my favourite venues, but part of its charm is how unpredictable it certainly can be. And one of the great things about this venue is that there aren't any hot areas. Even when you draw, you haven't got a clue where the wind is going to come from. Of course, it's bream fishing, so that means that there are sometimes pockets of fish here, there and everywhere along the reservoir, but like I say, you don't know where those pockets are going to be, and that's part of the charm, and that's what keeps people going back, and that's what keeps it so popular. Well, number 5 on my list is going to take us back to March 2016. It was an open match. There were 33 anglers on this particular match, and it's not a venue I fish very often on a regular basis. It only tends to be qualifiers, but I did fish a series of open matches there over the last 4 years, and this was one of the first ones. It was freezing cold, and we knew we were literally going to be fishing for a bite. I actually drew peg 53, which I think is quite a nice area. It's where the just where the gate is, as far as you can drive down the lane. And I always think that there's 1 or 2 fish scattered about somewhere there, so I was confident of getting 1 or 2 bites. As it turned out, 27 minutes into the match, I actually got a beautiful bite. And when I picked up on it, I literally got about 1 turn on it, and I was just tightening into the fish. This was on my long line at about 55 meters. And I've just pricked the fish. The hook just hasn't quite set in its mouth, and I've pulled out the fish. One of the worst things you can possibly do when you're bream fishing, but certainly on that venue, this is a venue where that can literally kill your peg for you know, several hours after that. I was absolutely gutted, but it was only 27 minutes in, so I was still hoping I was going to catch more. I've then cast in again, and on that cast it's been in about 8 minutes. I've had a huge great big line, and I picked up, there was nothing there. The bait wasn't touched, but that was still in the first half an hour of the match. However, how little I knew at the time, we then sat there for the next 3.5, 4 hours without a single sign. Not even a touch. There were no fish being caught. It was really, really hard. But the beauty of Southfield is that literally you can have 2 casts, catch 2 fish, and that can get you right in the frame when it's fishing as hard as that. And then guess what happened? With just under 2 minutes to go, my tip's just gone round, just like a summer bite. Unbelievably confident bite, and I picked up and I hooked a fish. I've scooped it, I've put the net under it with 30 seconds to go, and that was it. I literally had a chance to just fill the feeder, get back out there, and the shouted time. That was it, done. So I'd avoided the blank, but just the 1 fish with, like I say, I put it in the net with 30 seconds to go, and that had really been a bit of a hard area there. £19 actually won the match, so as predicted, there were a pocket of fish there, but that was one of the first open matches that I really fished there during that period, and yeah, it was certainly a test, but it was good to avoid the blank. Now, number 4 in my list is a match where I was kind of trying to get to grips with the venue, you know, just trying to work out how I could be patient and be very, very confident at the same time as well. So it's very much about selecting lines. This is February 2016, so it was the same time of year, but it was cold. On this particular day, I actually drew not far away from where I was in the last clip. I was on peg 57, so I was at the same sort of area. and it was incredibly windy. At the time, this was the windiest match that I'd fished there. You know, it's a huge reservoir. It's 150 acres or whatever it is. It's massive, and when that wind is coming from a certain direction, it just picks up pace, and the waves can be hitting you in the chest. I've even seen the waves hitting the rocks, and then the spray actually going down onto your van. You know, it can be that severe. But this was a very, very tough day. This was a match where literally after 4 hours there was something like 3 sections of anglers still blanking. They just hadn't had any fish caught. It was unbelievable. But like I said, with Southfield, literally 1 or 2 bites, which could be the last 2 casts of the match, can win you the match when it's as hard as that, and that's exactly what you've got to do. On this match, you really had to dig deep. I stuck to my guns. I actually stayed out at 50 metres, which was quite difficult to get there and hit that range consistently in that wind. But with 15 minutes to go, I've decided to go looking for a stray fish. I've decided to go 3 metres past my feed just to try and nick a fish. You know, it was evident that I hadn't seen any fish caught to my left, none to my right, and I thought I just need a fish that, you know, it could win the section or whatever. So I've decided to go 3 metres past my feed, but just with a bomb. So I've clipped a bomb on just with a single hook bait. I've gone 3 metres past. So at that time I was then at 53 metres, and it's only been in about 2 minutes. And the rod's just gone round virtually off the rest. I couldn't believe it, and I picked up nothing there. I didn't feel a thing. It was obviously a liner. So as I'm reeling that in from 53 metres, I've then got the dilemma. You know, I know that there's literally only 12 minutes, 13 minutes left of the match. What do I do? Yes, I'd had an indication by going past my feed, but I was that confident it was a liner. By the time I'd reeled in, I could see the bait hadn't been touched, which confirmed it was a liner. So what do? Do I go back out to that range again and try and pick up a fish? Or was that fish, was it a liner because it was on my feed, which was 3 metres further back? By the time I'd reeled in, I kind of made the decision to go on to my feed. So I quickly got off my box, and I didn't want to disturb the peg anymore. So I got off my box and I just re-clipped. I took 3 metres off. I went back to exactly 50 metres where my bait had gone in. And I've cast out back out there, and it's been in a couple of minutes, and I've had a massive great big bite. You know, it's nearly pulled the rod in again, and I've picked up and I've caught a fish. I played it as though it was the last fish in the world. But I've netted that fish with something like 10 minutes to go, and that's been it. I've not had another sign, but I've got one in the pan. I was very relieved to net it, because obviously in those conditions you've got the wind blowing, you've got a heavier feeder on as well, everything's bouncing around, and you know, I scooped the fish and it was just great to get a fish in the net. But as ever with Southfield, things can change. Even in the last 5 minutes, I've seen people not catch there until the last 5 minutes, and then 3 or 4 people have all hooked a fish. It can be incredible. However, on this occasion that didn't happen, so I ended up with 1 bream, which it was the only fish caught there. And as it turned out, the 12 pegs to my right never had a bite, never caught a fish. So the full 12 anglers to my right never caught, and 8 to my left never caught either. So that area there had obviously been really mega tough. So I caught the only fish there. It had won me the section, which was brilliant. But £14 won the match, and that was by match organiser Mick Axon. Well done again, Mick. I know I'm going back 4 years, but I've got to say well done. You won the match with £14. So yet again, it shows that there were some bream in certain areas. But that was a really tough match under extreme conditions. Ones where you just had to stick to your guns, stick it out, and just fish right to the death. Well, number 3 in my countdown is going back to January 2017. Now, the day before this match, the match was sold out. I think there was 39 anglers or 40 anglers booked on, and it was a sellout. And it got to Friday morning, I was at work, and it started snowing, and I just wanted to get out on the bank. I wanted to fish a match, so I messaged the organisers on the Friday morning, just saying, can you put me on the reserve list, let me know if somebody can't make it tomorrow. And by lunchtime I got a message that someone had dropped out so I managed to get on the match. It had been snowing, we knew it was going to be hard, but on this occasion the regular match organisers, Andy Renton and Mick Axon, unfortunately couldn't run this match, so it was Scott Rispin who was running it. We expected it being hard, but I just couldn't wait to get there. Well, as it turned out, I actually drew the same area again. It was peg 54, but like I said before, I think there's always one or two fish kicking around there. There are sometimes pockets, and to cut a long story short, we never had a sign, never had a bite. Our section blanked, I think the next section down blanked, the next section down blanked, and the section to my right blanked. As it turned out, it was incredibly difficult. We just never had a sign, you know, and when you get a number of anglers like that, and these were all regular anglers, you know, it was an open match, so it was all the regular anglers, all fishing different ranges, different mixes, different baits, different timings on the cast, and nobody had a sign. So, you know, that was one of the matches where people kind of start to think, they're just not there, you know, they're way out of range, or they're somewhere else on the reservoir, because even if the fish were there and moving about a little bit, you'd think that you'd be seeing indications even if they didn't really want to feed. So yeah, it was a really interesting match in the sense that it was evident that there weren't any fish feeding in that area. As it turned out, way up to my right there were two fish caught. Carl Hammond, well done Carl, and Scott Rispin, the match organiser. They both caught a fish, and both fish weighed exactly the same weight, 1 kilo 570 grams. So they both caught a fish and they were both exactly the same weight, and they were the only two fish caught up to the right. And when we saw the results afterwards, it was evident it had fished hard all the way down. Lindsay Clark actually won the match, well done mate, 2 kilo and 60 grams. And Dave Berry, who I'm sure a lot of you know, Dave Berry, he was second with a single fish, which was exactly 2 kilos. So he'd just been beaten by 60 grams. Unlucky mate, but well done for second in the match. And then joint third was Carl and Scott with their one fish apiece with their joint third weight. And I think there was only one other fish caught in the whole match, and that was Andy Beach. Well done Andy mate, and his single fish weighed 925 grams. So if you ever want a snapshot of how hard it can fish at Southfield for whatever reason, that match was a perfect example. Well, number 2 in my countdown is going back to December 2017, and we were faced with an absolutely flat calm reservoir. As you can imagine, bream fishing in those conditions isn't ideal. There was a bit of sun out as well, but it was cold, flat calm, the water was inevitably cold like it is at that time of year. And I've drawn up at the top end again. I was on peg 63, plenty of time to set up, and I decided to fish one rod, one line all day. That's, you know, that's one way that can work in winter on there. You've got to be super confident that your one line that you've selected is going to be right, because if you're going to be spending the full 5 hours on it, you don't want to be sat there wondering if you're in the right place or not. So that's what I decided to do on this particular match. I had a visit from Sean Stockley, good friend of mine. He came down to say hello before the start of the match. And it was also great to draw next to good old Joe Farrell. He was on my left at the next peg, so that was great to see Joe. We always have a bit of banter when we draw next to each other. And ironically, whenever I do draw next to Joe, we always end up catching 1 or 2 fish, so maybe that's a good omen. Well, the first 3 hours, I never had a single sign, not a single sign. There'd been 1 fish caught after 2 hours that we'd seen, and that was it. We'd heard that the rest of the long bank, which was covering the whole of the match length that we were fishing, there just hadn't been a single fish caught. Then just after the 3 hour mark, 2 pegs to my left was Paul Holmes, who I'm sure a lot of you know, he fishes there a lot. He got one, he just got a bream just out of the blue. It was incredible. And one of the things that we've always said and seen at Southfield is that it's amazing how long you can go without bites, and all of a sudden 2 anglers next to each other will both be playing fish at the same time, just as though, you know, it's fueling the opinions that the fish move in numbers. You know, they actually come onto the feed at the same time, and that's exactly what happened here. So it was just after 3 hours in, Paul Holmes hooked a bream, landed the bream, and then no sooner had he put it in the net, Joey got one next to me. He got one. He's playing one out of the blue. Incredible. And in that situation, obviously you're pleased for those lads, but then you're sat at the next peg hoping that you're going to get a visit. But my visit didn't come until the last 90 minutes. There was exactly 90 minutes left, and just out of the blue, as always with Southfield, the rod just nearly pulled off the rest. Out of the blue, no indications, just straight, you know, pulled straight round, and I got one. So that was great. I'd avoided the blank, and like I said before, Southfield, you can get visits, and that's exactly what happened on this match. I went straight back out again. It was only in a minute, and it's gone straight back round, and I've got another one. And they were good fish as well, you know, £3 plus fish, so that was fantastic. You're then obviously hoping, am I going to get another one? No one else had caught, and I went back in again, and that was it. It had just gone dead. I thought that was it. I didn't think I was going to get another visit. During that period, Paul had another visit. I think Paul ended the match with 3 fish. I think Joey might have had 2 fish, and then with 30 minutes to go, I've had another bite out of the blue, and I've hooked and landed another bream. So I ended up with 3 bream just from nowhere. And luckily those 3 fish just pipped Paul for the match. I ended up winning the match with £10 5 ounces. Just the 3 fish, and Paul was, you know, a bit unlucky that his 3 fish, I literally ounced him. Sorry Paul, again. His 3 fish were slightly smaller than mine, or one of them was smaller. But when you're fishing like that for a bite, you know, with relatively smaller baits, when that tip goes round, the fish could be that big, or it could be £4, you know, so there's a lot of luck involved in that. But it's just good to hook every bite and land every fish. That's obviously great. I decided to fish one line that day, and that's probably the longest I've fished. When I fished one line there, I fished 70 metres all day, just down that one hole, that one spot, and you just had to be patient and hope that you were going to get a visit. But it was nice to get the match win, and matches like that are very, very close, you know. And when you only need 3 bites to win a match, then that's what keeps people going back to Southfield when it's fishing hard like that, because anybody can get, you know, 3 bites from any of those pegs on their day, and you don't know, even when you sat on that peg, even with 30 minutes to go, you can still catch 3 fish. So that's part of the beauty of this venue. And number 1 for me was probably the first ever live match that I filmed at Southfield. It was one where I didn't really know the venue very well. You know, I had been a few times, but just kind of done my own thing. And this is when I thought I need to kind of get familiar with this venue, because, you know, we thought it was going to start appearing in more qualifying type matches for feeder masters and all that sort of thing. So that's when I really started to try and not just go and fish the match and just see what I could catch, but try and work it out, you know, try and spot patterns and that sort of thing. And this was, again, it was winter time. It was January 2016. It was actually Christmas week, this match. It was a one-off match that they decided to run. And I drew an area that I'm not that familiar with. It was peg 33. It's very, very rare for me to draw down at that end. And like I say, it was 2016. On my left was Tony Tarff, who used to run the matches there. I know a lot of you will know Tony. And on my right was Mick Smith. Well, I decided to just fish one line. I just thought if I keep it really nice and simple, I can just fish one line, monitor that line. Hopefully I'll get a visit at some stage in the 5 hours, but I can see what's happening around me just to kind of get a feel for the venue, and see what lines the fish were being caught on, if any were going to be caught. Well, after 2 hours I'd not had a sign, not had a bite. Tony on my left, he'd not had a sign, but just going up to the 2 hour mark, Mick on my right, Mick Smith landed a bream out of the blue, and that was the only one that I could really see on those pegs there. But then 2 hours 20 minutes in, I had a bite out of the blue from nowhere on that 50 metre line, obviously, because that's the only line I was focusing on, and I hooked and landed a fish. It was about £1.5. Then bang on 3 hours, Mick Smith on my right, he got another one. So he got 2, I'd got the 1, and Tony had not caught. And we heard that 4 fish was winning the match. It was John Deakin. He was up in the 40s apparently, up to our right. So even then, even at that stage, after 3 hours, you know, when you know only 4 fish is winning the match, everybody's still right in it. With 90 minutes to go, I've just kind of thought I need to just try one or two changes now. So I've done various different things, trying to change the feeder size and the way that, you know, the frequency of casting and all that business. Slightly left, slightly right of the feed and all that. But with 90 minutes to go, I decided to step up the hook bait. So I put a slightly larger hook on, and I've fished a nice big chunky piece of worm, like a target bait, you know, because that could sometimes work on some venues. If you think there's a fish there, or they're looking at it, or they're just not bothered about it, sometimes on some venues fish can have a greedy spell. They just see a bigger bait and they snatch at it, and that's exactly what happened. So with an hour and a half to go, I put a nice big chunky piece of worm on, and it's only been out there about 6 or 7 minutes. The rod's just gone round again, straight off the rest, and I've hooked and landed a decent fish. And then I've gone in again, same hook bait, the very next cast, and it's gone round again, and I've got a third fish. Absolutely brilliant. But you know, even then there was still over an hour to go. I thought I might get another visit here, but as it turned out, I didn't get another visit, so I just ended the match with 3 fish. Well, my 3 fish actually weighed £9, and unbelievably that was second in the match. John Deakin ended up winning the match with just over £10. I don't know if he had 4 fish or whether he caught another smaller fish, but he won the match with just over £10. So I was second in match. So it's just another example about sticking with it, just alternating hook baits and being confident that if you are going to fish one line, that you are going to get a visit on that line at some stage during 5 hours, even if it's not going to be right until the last stages of the match. As with all natural venues, they can all fish hard during winter, but the beauty of Southfield is that it is so random. When you draw your peg at the start of a match, you know, you might draw a peg that's not really got any form whatsoever, but that could be the winning peg, you know. When you're after 3, 4, 5 bites in the real depths of winter, then whatever peg you draw at Southfield, you know that that peg is capable of throwing up those bites, and that's why it's so popular. That's why the matches sell out, and that's why people keep going back there. If you'd like to watch any of those videos in full, then they are all in the playlist right here on this channel. So just go to the playlist that's called Live Matches at Southfield, and all 21 matches are there for you to watch. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this little bit of an insight. It's been nice looking back at some of these matches. If you don't want to miss any of these future videos, just please hit subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and you might want to check out my Coach Intuition style video channel just there, Patron TV. Thanks for watching, hope you've enjoyed this little bit of a throwback, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next video.